Good night. How everyone doing tonight? God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma J. of Spiritual Divine. I have a word for you tonight, and the topic gonna be Gabrielle, a wise woman, but she had a husband, Never was a fool. Now, this story gonna come from First Samuel, chapter 25. Now, this was a time after when Samuel had died. And just dealing with David too. And then David was under Samuel. So David moved into a desert, and a certain man who had property there, and he was very wealthy. Now his name was Noah, and his wife Gabrielle. Now Gabrielle was beautiful. She was intelligent. She was wise. I mean, she was a smart woman, and she think quick. Now, but her husband was mean, cruel, and he was a fool. And that's what his name means, fool. Um, so Gabrielle, she was a small woman. No matter no matter what her husband did, he was her husband, and she always took charge, and be the wise person to take care of everything in the household. So she was a good woman. She was a good wife. So now David sent 10 men to Nob. Now you remember David living on his property. Because he a wealthy man, he own property, and David is on his property. So David sent 10 men over there to meet him. So David said, "Go greet Nabin and greet him in his name." In his name. So David told them when they get there to say long life, good health in your household, good health to all that is yours. So this was David told his men to tell Gabriel when they get there. But then when the men get there, Gabriel telling the men, joking around and mocking him like, who is David? Like, who is David? So he just criticizing the people. Now Never had all kind of food. He had bread. He had water. Now these people walking through the desert. Now they're tired, hungry, and they wanted some food and some water. But Never, he refused to get them water. He refused to give them food or anything. So he mistreated the men, and they turned around and went back to David. And they told David everything what Never said. So David was fighting when he was a boy. You know how he took that giant and then took that giant whole head off. So David can fight with his hand, and he's still in that slingshot. So David's servant had told David everything that would happen. Told him everything would happen. Now remember, David can fight with his hands. Now David was angry that he treated his men like that. And David living on his property, taking care of his sheep and all that kind of stuff on his property. So David said, he told the man, put on the sword. Sword is one of the armor of God, one of the pieces. So he told him to put that on, and David was ready to fight. They were angry. So him and his man put that on to go look for Nabal, how he treat his men, and just send them on the way. So Nabal's wife. So one of the servants told Nabal's wife what was going on. Told Gabrielle what was going on. So Gabrielle, she a small woman. She ain't wasting no time. After he told her how her husband acted fool and stuff like that, she got up all the food, she got up water, and she ain't asked no questions. She just got up the food, she got up the water, she got on a donkey, and she went to meet David, because David was after the household. David wasn't gonna just get that, but he wanted to get the whole. He put a threat on the whole household. So she think quick on her toes and got her the food and water and went to David. So when she saw David, she bowed down, greet him, and she told David, I take the blame for my husband. I know my husband, bad behavior and stuff like that. So she willing to take the blame for her husband of his bad behavior. And she also said this not the first time her husband had a bad behavior. She always have to go to his rescue. you know. So she didn't even tell her husband she left to go meet David. She just got in a donkey and left. And she wanted to go feed them men that he turned around. So she gathered the food and water and met David. First she fed the men, because she met the men first. Then when she saw David, she bowed down to David. But the husband gonna tell me who is David? Who is David? So she fed the men. She also bowed down to David, and she also said she'll take the blame for her husband's bad behavior. So we see. So never he refused to feed the people, and so but the wife did so fast to cover the husband. So bad behavior. So now this woman is wise. No matter what her husband do, she always she always got his back. She always got his back, and she always take the fall for his bad behavior. So her husband was the cause of the threat over the household. That's why she had to hurry up and go to David to try to apologize and take the blame for her husband's bad behavior, because he was coming towards the whole household. So she was terrified of the threat of her entire household. So remember, David and his men was on, and they was ready to go look for him. They were ready to look for her husband. So Gabrielle said whatever he did, she also said it wasn't the first time her husband had a bad behavior. Gabrielle quit thinking and got a food and to find the men to feed them that her husband had mistreated. Because a lot of times when you marry, just like God said back in Genesis, when you marry, you want. So if your husband or your wife make a mistake and make you look bad, they're making both of y'all look bad. Because she said every time he have a bad behavior, she always go to his rescue. So now Gabrielle got to David, and before she got to she didn't tell her husband she was gonna meet David. So Gabrielle saw David. She bowed down before David with her face down to the ground, and she fell at his feet. And she said, "Lord, let the blame be on me alone." Gabrielle took care of everything, and then she went home. So when she go home, she thinking she going home to tell her husband that she done took care of everything. They were not coming after us and stuff like that. She took the blame for everything. So when she get home, her husband is holding a banquet, and then he drunk. So she couldn't even tell him what had happened. She had to wait till he gets sober and wait till the next day, the next morning, to tell him what happened. Because he was so drunk. So Gabrielle waited in the morning to tell him that she talked with David, and his heart fell. So when she told him that she talked to David, then her husband heart failed him, and he become like a stone. I guess the news was just so heavy for him. I guess the news was so heavy for him, his heart failed him, and he become to be a stone. So 10 days later, his heart become to be a stone. So 10 days later, the Lord struck Noah, and he died. So he was a mean man. He was a mean man. He was always a fool. And his wife was a good wife that she always had to come to his rescue. She always had to take charge of his mistake. So now David heard that Nebuchadnezzar is dead. So now David, he heard that the man is dead now. So now he gonna send his servant to Gabrielle and say he wants her to be his wife. Now remember, he already got married to Malachi, to Pharaoh's daughter, and he also have other wives. So he have multiple wives. But she did marry him. So she became his wife. And remember that David already had wives. And this is a good woman. She bowed down with her face to the ground and said, "Here is my maidservant." Now, see, when David had called for her, then she bowed down and said, "This is your maidservant." And she ready to serve him and wash his feet. Now, you don't find too many women that going to wash a man's feet, especially when her husband just died. So she was willing to wash his feet and everything else, ready to serve him. Now, here's the maidservant. She ready to serve him and wash his feet. Now she became David's wife. Now David had multiple wives already. So we see that this woman here is a good woman. She very smart and she very wise and she very quick thinking. And she don't ask no questions because soon the servant had told her what had happened. She hurried up and gathered the food together and water, got on a donkey, and went to try to go feed the David men. So what I have, Gabrielle was a wise woman. Now she is a quick thinker, and she stated that it wasn't her husband's first time he had a bad behavior. That she always had to save him and take charge. Too. Her husband refused to feed David men, and he didn't accept their greetings. Now you remember David sent his men over there to greet him because by David lived on his property, he wanted his men to meet him. So he did not accept the men greetings, and instead of him accepting their greetings, he started mocking them and mistreating them, talking about who is David, and he refused to feed them when they was walking all through the desert to give him a greeting. So now David was gone. Now David was threatening the whole household because of her husband. So Gabrielle met David and wanted to talk to him and put the blame on herself. Now that is a good woman. The husband made a mistake. The husband is have bad behavior and mistreated these people, and he refused to feed them and give them water. But she turned around and said she'll take the blame. Now you don't find too many women that gonna take the blame for their husband, but she was a woman that she was down for her husband no matter what. And they got some women like that. No matter what, they got some people very dedicated to their husband or their wife. They don't care what they do. They're gonna stand by their man. So David was the cause. David was going to attack her whole household. So Gabrielle met David, and she wanted to take the blame, and she solved the problem. And David didn't go attack her household. So far David heard that her husband had died, and then he wanted to marry Gabrielle. I guess he saw how she took off her husband, that she was a good, honest, wise woman. So this pack is pretty much about this wise woman. That no matter what situation occur, she think quick on her toes and she hurry up and take charge. She don't ask no questions. She just got up everything and took charge and solved the problem. And come home, her husband drunk. So this a woman here. She don't waste no time. She was wise. She was smart. And she was very intelligent. And she was able to take charge of her household. Her household was being threatened on. So she hurried up and took charge. She didn't ask no questions. She didn't call her husband. She didn't told him nothing. She took charge on her own because she already was a wise woman. She already knew what to do. So sometimes, her husband always was being a fool. And his name means fool. So that means he had to act like a fool all the time, but he did. He act like a fool all the time. She always had to come to his rescue, and this time she was like, I take the blame. I take the blame. Don't come against our family. I take the blame for whatever he did. Now there was a dedicated, good woman that was standing by her man. So the pack was about this wise woman. She took charge. And I'm pretty much trying to preach on a lot of women this week. This another woman. Yesterday I preached on the two ladies on Deborah and Jada. And this another woman here. Very wise, smart, and intelligent. That she took charge. She took charge. Now all the stuff that her husband did, you know, the Lord struck him down, and he died. So he left behind a small woman, a good woman that David turned around and took her. She was willing to watch David feed and everything else. She is a good woman and a wise woman. So we see that this woman took charge, but she also stood by her man, stood by her husband. No matter what he did, she was willing to take the blame for her husband. So I hope y'all have a blessed night, and I'll see y'all next video.